A super important conversation at an event like this. How do you build your perfect DI or DNI team or IDE team? How, what, and why? Here to talk to you about it, let's welcome Aleksandra Habrat, G Healthcare Inclusion Diversity ERG Leader, Staff Technical Product Manager. Hello, Aleksandra.
Hello, everyone.
Great to have you join us.
Great to be here.
We also have Michał, Knapik, representing mBank, Diversity and Inclusion Senior Specialist. Hello, Michał. How are you?
Hello to you. How are you? How you're doing today?
Surviving, to quote Gloria Gaynor.
We're doing great. Great to have you here.
Yes, we are. And two smiling
That's what
faces.
I see. So, yeah. I can confirm you're doing great, as always.
Now with the two smiling faces looking at us, we can say we certainly have your recipe for building a perfect DNI team. So tell us, how do you do it? Where do you start?
So what I'd say first is you do need to do a research. You need to start from a research. You need to understand the organization and its culture, how it was built, what is the story, how people are acting, what are the behaviors in the organization. You need to understand the bottlenecks, the biases, so you do know with what you're working with, what is going to be your goal for the group. And also, it is great to have a support from a person who is working for a long time in a company, so they do understand the company better. You need to have the leadership support. This is crucial in the success of such a group. And there are, many aspects related to that. I would emphasize people's engagement, motivation, and also people need to trust you. It's good to be likable, of course, if you're going to build such a group and recruit people for inclusion and diversity group.
Thank you very much, Aleksandra. Now that I think about it, just about every verb that you used is so complex, in fact, that a separate PhD could be written about each and every one of them. Because how do you understand your organization and the needs in these organizations? What tools do you adjust? Maybe Aleksandra or Michał, if you could relate to that. How do you build this understanding procedure-wise? What do you do? Do you go and ask about? Do you send emails? Do you read the company vision statement? What do you do?
Well,
so
I would
in
say
my
that,
opinion, you can... Yeah. Go ahead, Michał.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so maybe you can add to this what I'm going to say. I think you can use whatever tools you have available, right? So if you can talk to the people working in a different businesses, sub-businesses on a different roles, on a different levels, that is going definitely to be beneficial. Reading vision, mission, and the statement of the company or its results will be beneficial to understanding what cultures you have within the company, what countries. So I'd say, doing the detailed research, or at least, the research that you can afford to do, meaning time-wise. So definitely there are a lot of answers a lot of questions that can be answered during such research, and definitely talking to the people might be even the best solution here.
What Aleksandra is saying here is that to get to the perfect DNI team, what you need is great analytical skills at some point, a good, effective researcher who will basically give you an entry point diagnosis where you are and what the aspirations could be for any given team. What else, Michał?
I would say that definitely communication skills, the soft skills. You have to have someone who's able to conduct a training, who's able to conduct a meeting, someone who has great writing skills, because, in a great big company, the communication is in many ways done by the email. Also, I would say that someone who's not afraid to sometimes be engaged in a difficult conversation. So as you can see, diversity of talents. But I can also say that someone who has those analytical logistic skills that can set the straight path forward for the whole team.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you would like to add to the portfolio of skills gradually growing in complexity in this conversation?
Well, I would say
when you
that
talk about Michał, when
building,
you talk about communication, are we
yeah,
talking about selling skills, or are we talking about leading by example more, or personal
I would
passion?
say empathy and openness and being able to engage in a communication with different perspectives, because you have to be able to listen to people, sometimes not agree with them or sometimes change your view, because you will be dealing with a lot of questions at some point, a lot of questions from the leaders who are supposed to be engaged, who are supposed to support the whole meaning of diversity and inclusion and equity in their teams. But you asked about the recipe, and I would say, like, listening to this, I would say that it's like the recipe for our favorite pie in our family. Every household has a bit different recipe, but the end result is similar. So I would say that you can always see where it goes and add one ingredient or the other, just to have this perfect combination at some point. It
Oh,
takes
come
time,
on.
but get there.
Come on, making apple pie is more of a religion than, having individual recipe.
Yet it sounds like either we're looking for a unicorn if it's all about one person, or we are thinking about the large teams. And as we all know, D&I departments often struggles with resources. So how to balance this need for a diverse skills, because you've mentioned quite a lot of them, Michał, and the constraints within the organization, which are budgets, headcount. What is your recommendation here?
Well, given our example, I would say that very helpful is having the diversity and inclusion as a general strategy in the company, and also the culture, as we heard in the previous panel. This two has to go in pair, because you cannot have only the strategy without people understanding their goal. What company do we want to work in? So I would say that it's not definitely one person. Definitely not. It's not possible. We all have our bigger talents and smaller talents that we have to accept and work on those our strengths. So yeah, coming back to the topic, I think the DNI team is not only the DNI specialist or the chief diversity officer or someone who is leading the ERG group. At some point, the DNI team will consist of people from the recruitment team, from learning and development team. In our case, HR business partners who work with managers from the whole organization in different areas. So those talents that we mentioned, those skills that we mentioned, can come from different regions, I would say, of the company, depending, of course, on the size. But you don't have to have those talents right away in your closest group of those DNI team people. You can look out for some help or some support in other teams. If the company is really going in this diversity and inclusion direction, and I hope that in that stage that we are talking about, most companies do, you can find those helping hands in your colleagues.
Aleksandra, Michał, now that I think about it, it looks like one of the reasons why it's such a challenging thing to build a balanced D&I team is that there are a couple of implicit contradictions there, because on the one hand, you need great storytelling and potentially great storytellers, strong individuals, let's say powerful individual personalities. On the one hand, you need it to be infectious, if we can still use the word in a positive sense in 2022, infectious in the sense that people will see this as really important without much encouragement, without any propaganda or positive messaging around it. People just see it, take a close look at it and say, yeah, it actually matters. So it needs to be as simple as that, without being attacked with too much over positive content around it. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree definitely. And one more skill that I am going to add is influencive skills, right? So people actually believe in the cause and believe in what you're saying, that this is the right way, and they want to also collaborate and engage. So engaging people in such group and all the events that we're organizing and education that we're doing is also a challenge here, but that's why we're forming those groups. That's why we're electing leaders who can actually lead for the better cause.
Let's talk about selecting, if you like. It's a nasty little word, but choosing people that you think will help you achieve this balanced sense that the whole complexity of a D&I team can actually work. How do you do it? How do you go about looking for the right people in your organization?
Well, if it comes from above, so if the company decides, okay, we are ready to have a full-time diversity, equity, inclusion team to take care of those strategy aspects, it all comes down to inclusive recruitment. So you, of course, have to look for the skills, the right skills, the competences, but to represent actually the mission of DNI, you have to look out for the diverse people. So the inclusive recruitment is one thing. The other thing is setting your goals really clearly, so you can see what do you need right now, what you may need in the future, what's your objective, what are the key results that you want to achieve in the nearest future, at least hypothetically, and then you can see who you need, what are those skills that you want to have in this group, who do you already have in other teams that can support them, and I think that the way you can try. Of course, there's no perfect way, but I think that is a good direction.
Thank you very much, Michał. We've got like 2 questions coming from our audience in the chat window, so allow me to quote both. Sabrina is asking you, Michał, in fact, so maybe we'll start with Aleksandra and then go back to you. But the question for you, Michał, is what is the biggest milestone in your team so far? How do you drive initiatives in your company specifically? And another question from Virginia, what would be your suggestions to a recruiter in making sure managers take into consideration D&I in their teams when acquiring new talent? I really, the thing about acquiring talent always is problematic. Do you feel like having an interview including a member of the team would be beneficial? So do you see that in the recruitment process, having someone who has more intimate understanding of D&I would introduce a bias, or is this something that needs to be done, should be done?
So I think that this is really important, and actually right now there are a lot of efforts to emphasize inclusion and diversity also in the recruitment and also in the positions that are posted. So definitely I think such a person with such knowledge is needed, and I think that this was emphasized during this conference many times already. And what I'd say is that is really, really important that we pay close attention to the words, as we said at the beginning of this conversation, because sometimes people who will be applying may not feel well, but also with what they read, but also forming such a recruitment strategy can also work for our benefit, making sure that we are hiring the people who should actually work for us. But I guess this is definitely a question to Michał, since my role is a leader of ERG, so I do not have a lot of in common in recruitment. So
Michał, now that you've been brought to our attention.
Yeah, so maybe I will follow up. Maybe I will follow up and answer the first question that you mentioned. So I have the pleasure to work in the team that is taking care of people experience and the recruitment. So in my team, there are our wonderful recruiters who are very much aware of what D&I is. So I would say that this is our milestone. I went, in my head, I went through the list of the goals that we set at the beginning of this year, and we really managed to get to most of them. Of course, you can say about the the number of participants in recruitment to have the gender neutrality, which we achieved. You can say stuff about programs that we introduced, for example, for parents or people coming back from longer absences. But I would say the biggest milestone is actually having people being interested in diversity and inclusion. So we had this goal of building the awareness, and we thought that it will take much longer for a company that has several thousand people in Poland. But I have received many questions. Can I engage? This is really important for me. Maybe we should do something like that. From people who are not from the HR, not from the leadership teams. They want to be involved. So some sort of ERG group created itself because of our actions and our, let's say, education, our trainings and talks and webinars. And this group created itself, and it represents people from the whole organization, different aspects of what mBank does. And we were really surprised, positively surprised, how quickly the level of understanding what inclusion and diversity is we have right now. Of course, still a long way to go. As always, diversity is a journey, and we are always learning many stuff. But it brings a smile to my face, because when I think of it, without this awareness, this understanding, this support from the people, because we are doing it for the people, right? We cannot do much more. So this is our milestone, like setting the level of understanding very high.
Michał, thank you so much. We've got another question, but unfortunately no time. So feel free to revert to our chat window to address questions addressed during this session. Michał Knapik, mBank, Aleksandra, Habrat, GE Healthcare. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you join us. Thank you.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.